Many single people in their 30s now like to call themselves high-quality leftover women when they're on blind dates. But honestly, that phrase doesn't hold up. I struggle to see how you can combine high quality with leftover women. When you read that, who do you think is the main focus? Anyone with basic reading comprehension can tell that the subject is leftover women, not high quality. High quality are just descriptors. And let's be real, leftover isn't exactly a glowing term. To put it bluntly, it's like the leftovers at a market. Are they really high quality? I wanted to dive into this topic last month, but I was worried about ruffling some feathers. Now that I've built up a bit more courage, I'm ready to tackle the idea of high-quality leftover women. The way people view these singles seems to fall into two camps. One group thinks that despite their seemingly impressive qualifications, high-quality leftover women often have hidden issues and unspoken flaws. The other group consists of the high-quality leftover women themselves, who generally see themselves as quite exceptional, especially in major cities where many have master's or doctoral degrees, good salaries, nice homes, and come from solid backgrounds. When they talk about their situations, they really do sound impressive. Many people who aren't in the know might wonder, if they're so great, why can't they find a partner? Why are they still single? It raises the question, how can such outstanding individuals end up single? Nowadays, we refer to blind dating as the dating or marriage market. Honestly, I'm not a fan of the term market and don't want to treat people like products, but I'll use it for the sake of discussion. Think about how a market operates. The veggies in the morning are fresh, those at noon are still decent, but by evening, what's left is usually the scraps. Have you ever gone to a market in the evening and found a piece of really fresh meat? It's unlikely because others are not blind. True quality doesn't get left behind. Now, when I say this, older singles might bristle. I have a master's or a doctorate, I make a great salary, and I have a respectable status. How can you say I'm not excellent? To determine if someone is truly excellent, you must first establish the criteria for evaluation. For example, as a boss, if I evaluate an employee, that person needs to have strong work skills, a solid sense of responsibility, the ability to manage a team effectively, cope with significant pressure, maintain good relationships with clients, and willingly put in extra hours when necessary, all while supporting their teammates and making my life easier as a boss. However, everyone only has 24 hours in a day. If an outstanding employee pours all their time and energy into work, will they really have the bandwidth to nurture their family relationships? They might shine at work, but are they a good partner or parent at home? On the flip side, if someone clocks out right on time every day, no matter what urgent tasks come up, just to rush home to pick up their spouse and kids, they may be seen as a good partner and father from a family standpoint. Yet, from a boss's perspective, they might not come off as an excellent employee. Now, I'm not saying that every employee should be 100% dedicated to their job. What I'm trying to get at is that to truly assess someone's excellence, you need to have the right criteria in place. If someone is a workaholic and neglects their family, they can't really be considered a great partner in a romantic sense. Many women, when looking for a partner, may look for someone who is 6 feet tall, has a degree from a prestigious university, and possesses certain resources. While these traits might make a guy attractive on paper, they don't translate into the emotional depth that relationships require. The real measure of someone's excellence in relationships boils down to their ability to love and loved by others, to understand what their partner wants and what they want for themselves, and to provide positive reinforcement in the relationship. Can they nurture mutual growth, support one another, and create a healthy, uplifting bond? Are both individuals comfortable in that relationship? So, to all the older singles out there, can you do this? The answer is clearly no. If you could, you wouldn't be in this situation. The reason you may believe you're excellent is that you're caught up in these external, socially defined qualities, thinking that a high degree, a solid family background, and a good income make you exceptional. It's like a gaming scenario where everyone starts with 100 points. If you put 90 points into attack, you're left with only 10 for defense. You might excel in some areas, but if your relationship skills are at 0, that explains why you're still single. Some singles who frequently date can even make a simple dinner uncomfortable. Do you really think you can find a partner like that? If you haven't broken out of your bubble and are still living in the mindset of, I'm so great, it's just that nobody else sees it, then you're only fooling yourself. If you genuinely struggle with relationships, I have two pieces of advice for you. First, stay out of the dating scene. Don't treat yourself like a product because you lack the skills to navigate relationships, and that's not your strong suit. Second, if you still want love and marriage, you need to dial down the self-importance. Stop being so self-satisfied and learn how to genuinely love both others and yourself.
The term high-quality leftover women doesn't really hold any weight in today's world. In my view, these so-called high-quality leftover women are simply those who have trouble getting married, using this label to gloss over their situation. The reality is that the dating market is incredibly competitive. If a woman is genuinely high quality, she would likely have already been snatched up or married by someone. Those who remain single often judge their own excellence by their own standards, which aren't recognized by men in the market. That said, I do have to acknowledge that many of these high-quality leftover women are typically attractive and fit. This situation arises largely from the differing societal expectations and responsibilities placed on men and women. Let's take a hypothetical man, for example. He comes from an average background, with everyday parents. Suppose he makes 30,000 yuan a month. He has to cover his car and mortgage payments, and maybe even buy some insurance for his parents, which could easily eat up 10,000 to 20,000 yuan. After that, some of what's left needs to go into investments, and some has to be saved. By the end of the month, he might only have a few thousand yuan left to spend as he likes. The reason for this is that he not only has to take care of himself, but also has obligations to his parents. If he gets married, he'll also be responsible for a wife and children. These are the societal expectations placed on men. Now, let's look at these high-quality leftover women. Imagine one of them earns 20,000 yuan a month. A big chunk of that goes toward her monthly expenses or rent, leaving her with some disposable income. This is why many of these women live quite carefree lives. They frequently go out with friends for spa days, treat themselves to beauty treatments, or travel abroad. To keep up their looks and polished appearance, they spend a lot on cosmetic procedures, skincare, makeup, and even luxury goods. As this lifestyle becomes their norm, they start to develop a misguided sense of superiority, believing that most ordinary men simply aren't good enough for them. Two main factors contribute to their spending behavior. First, society constantly reinforces the idea that as long as a woman marries well, that's all that matters. If she marries into a good situation, she'll have everything she wants, which encourages them to spend freely, especially on maintaining their appearance. The second factor comes from their upbringing. Many parents operate under the belief that they should invest more in raising daughters than sons, fearing their daughters might lack experiences and be easily deceived by men. Consequently, they provide their daughters with a relatively luxurious lifestyle from a young age, which leads these women to expect similar standards as they grow up. These factors have created significant issues in the values and perspectives on relationships held by these high-quality leftover women. As a result, they tend to zero in on men who have better circumstances, overlooking the fact that these men have plenty of options available to them. While a high-quality man might date an attractive woman, he's unlikely to marry her just for her looks. This is where the issue arises. If these so-called high-quality leftover women hadn't dated high-quality men, they might come to terms with their situation and realize it's their own issue, adjusting their expectations and criteria for partners. But because they've been involved with these men, they feel a sense of entitlement. Interestingly, when a woman breaks up with a high-quality man, he isn't likely to say, "I was only dating you for fun. I never intended to marry you." Instead, he might state that it's because she's too demanding or has personality issues. This explains why we see so many female relationship bloggers thriving in today's online world. These bloggers tell women that their struggles in relationships stem from emotional intelligence issues, which keeps them in a fantasy, believing they are just one step away from landing a high-quality man. During this realization process, some high-quality leftover women might come to terms with the fact that marrying a high-quality man is unlikely, so they lower their expectations, thinking they could settle for someone with similar circumstances. However, These economically comparable men often prefer casual relationships rather than marriage. When these men evaluate a woman's spending habits, they worry that marrying her would turn her into a financial burden on the family. Ultimately, most high-quality leftover women fail to see that they are the problem. Instead, because of their past failed relationships, they tend to blame men, insisting that all men are just players trying to take advantage of them. This breeds a sense of hostility toward men. Some women even give up and say they don't want to be taken for a ride, insisting that any man who wants to be with them has to spend money. Their reasoning stems from a fear of being shortchanged, but this fear also exposes a weakness. Think about it. What high-reward opportunities exist without risk? The only answer is scams. You'll find countless stories of women who, despite all warnings, fall victim to scams because they can't resist the allure of potential rewards. The main reason these high-quality leftover women remain single is due to their flawed thinking, which they refuse to acknowledge. Essentially, they're unwilling to collaborate with a man for mutual benefit because they see that partnership is risky. They fear that if things go wrong, they'll end up with nothing. Instead, they focus solely on how to climb higher and marry up with minimal investment. Interestingly, about 99% of matchmaking agencies in our society are supported by these so-called high-quality leftover women. I launched my own matchmaking business back in 2017, so I'm familiar with how the industry operates. Over 95% of my clients were women, while male clients made up less than 5%. Given this mismatch in resources, how do matchmakers introduce women to potential partners? To make a profit, they often resort to dubious tactics, using acquaintances and fabricating details about the men, even embellishing their profiles before presenting them to these women. After all, if a blind date fails, it's not their concern. Their job is just to make the introduction and get paid.